Frank Wark is an evil man. Back in 1999, he was a suspect in the disappearance and presumed murder of 17-year-old Hayley Dodd in Western Australia. But police bosses there refused to prioritise the investigation, and Wark fled the state unnoticed. He moved to far north Queensland. Among the cane fields and dairy farms of the lush Atherton tableland, Frank Wark found a new home here in the tiny town of Millamilla. He blended in with the locals, playing pool and drinking at the pub. He even dated a number of the women here. But beneath the surface, there still lurked a dangerously violent and sadistic predator.
The rooftop you can see in the distance is Wark's residence.
Queensland Detective Senior Sergeant Brett Devine first encountered Frank Wark in June 2007. Called to investigate why a naked, terrified woman had run screaming from his house. What do you think he would have done if he'd caught up with her?
Well, I don't think she would be talking to us today.
Wark's startled neighbours had called police.
Some elderly people who live next door, I think they were sitting on their front veranda having a cup of tea and they were confronted by a hysterical, naked female bleeding from the head.
What do you remember bringing you here that night?
If I was going to live or I was going to die.
A decade on from the sickening attack, Andrea is speaking out for the first time. But while she survived Frank Wark, she's still traumatised by how close she came to being his next murder victim. So Andrea, 10 years ago, late at night, this country road, why did you get in the car with this strange man?
I thought he was actually being helpful and helping me get to Millamilla so I can go home.
What was it about him that made you trust him?
He was very talkative, polite, and he just made me feel okay to get a lift from him.
After picking Andrea up and offering to drive her into town, Wark said he needed to stop by his remote property to fuel up his car. He convinced Andrea to have coffee with him, but once inside, his friendly demeanour vanished.
And when he asked me if I wanted to stay overnight, I said no. And when I looked at the door, I noticed that the door's locked, but it wasn't locked when we first came in.
So what happens?
I hopped up, unlocked the door, and I said, I'm going. He's caught up to me, he swung my arm around, and he started smashing the top of my head with a clunk of wood.
He was hitting you with an axe handle?
Like a club, yes. I feared that he was going to kill me there and then.
With blood pouring down her head, Andrea fought back.
After I stopped him hitting with me with the clunk of wood, he said I was feisty. He said he liked me because I fought back. And that's when I thought he's done this before to someone else.
You also said to him, why are you doing this, when he was hitting you?
He said this is rape. And that's when he decided to drag me by my hair inside the house. The rope was already in the room where the bedhead was. He's tied my wrists very tight.
So he had the rope ready?
Yes.
For the next 6 hours, Wark raped, bashed and tortured Andrea. But it was his insistence to keep one of her earrings that makes police believe he planned on killing his victim.
I don't think he ever intended to let her go, and I don't think he intended to let her live.
But as dawn broke, Andrea cheated death. Counting Wark's steps each time he left the room, she started loosening the ropes tied around her wrists. You're in a strange house in the country. What do?
I hopped up. I ran to the next room and grabbed my wallet, so I was able to run through the back door, run out the driveway. He's yelling after me to come back. And because I was running down a gully, I can hear him echoing to come back.
You must have been terrified.
I was. I ran all the way to the next house.
What happens?
I didn't see anyone there, but when I get closer to the house, there's an elderly couple. They're staring at me and I'm standing naked.
But you're safe.
Yes.
Before she escaped, Andrea did something remarkable. She took off the locket around her neck and flung it under the bed. That evidence helped clinch the case against Frank Wark, who pleaded guilty to rape, sexual assault and deprivation of liberty. So this is the locket that sent Frank Wark to jail.
Yes. Me throwing that locket underneath that bed proved that I was in that room and he tormented me horrifically.
Andrea's case should have been the breakthrough West Australian police needed for their ongoing Hayley Dodd investigation. She'd disappeared 8 years earlier, and back then Wark had been a suspect. But when they heard about his crimes in Queensland, the WA detectives seemed nonplussed. In 2007, the West Australian police are notified that Wark has been arrested for the most violent, dreadful rape. At that stage, in 2007, was anything done by West Australian police about that information?
No. I, of course, had left the police service at that stage. My understanding is that notification was placed on the file pending further information or evidence coming to hand.
So this is a guy who's a couple of 100 metres from where a young girl is last seen by a witness, and then 8 years later he's picked up for a violent, sadistic abduction and rape.
Ross, I don't have any answers for you because to me it's common sense. It certainly would put the biggest red flag out there.
Instead, in that same year, 2007, a police review of the Dodd case falsely concluded that there was no forensic link between Frank Wark and the missing teenager. But remember, the car seat covers seized from the ute Wark drove the day Hayley disappeared still hadn't been properly examined or tested.
I'm doing the detective work for them. I'm giving them information and then I've got to chase them to follow it up.
Despite Hayley Dodd's mother, Margaret, relentlessly hounding police, it seems the case wasn't seen as worth the time or the money.
We'd just like to find Hayley so at least we can lay her to rest and have some peace.
6 years later, in 2013, police conducted another review, and the evidence from the Holden ute was finally examined. Within a minute of unfolding the car seat covers, forensic scientists made a startling discovery. Caught in the fabric was a tiny silver earring.
It's an exact match. I knew what she was wearing that day. I knew the earrings.
It was identical to the one drawn by Hayley's friend, Lisa Fredrickson, in the days following the teenager's disappearance in 1999. It looks like it's been bent, doesn't it?
It looks like it's been forcibly removed or caught in the car seat, obviously, as he's either pulled her out.
Would Hayley have put up a fight?
She would have been overpowered. She wouldn't be able to fight back, but I hope she did. I just can't believe that this is what brought him undone.
A strand of hair was also discovered in the vacuuming taken from the ute's footwell. It proved a DNA match to Hayley Dodd's mum.
I was dumbfounded. I could have bawled my eyes out. It was like a wave just washed over me. You know, all of these years thinking, did you do everything you could have done? Did we do, as an organisation, everything we could have done at the time?
Former Detective Eddie Rowe has always felt troubled by Hayley's unsolved murder. The missed evidence remains one of his greatest regrets. Why wasn't the car seat tested when it was taken back to Perth?
Essentially because nobody from Major Crime requested their examination.
Why didn't it happen?
caseload, money.
Do you think that if your bosses at WA Police had given you the resources you were asking for in 1999, this case would have been solved then?
Oh, absolutely. They should have been examined.
Coming up,
Without a shadow of a doubt, there will be others.
a creepy connection.
The earring you referred to as taking a trophy.
And what happened to Lily's mother.
I just like to think that she went down fighting.
That's next on 60 Minutes.